Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back, everybody, to once again Red Hot Talk. We had a little break last week because Ross was in jail.
Yeah,
he was in jail, and so we had a little break there. But next week I'm away as well. So this week is our only chat, and then the next one is going to be a couple of weeks away from now. We got a couple of really interesting discussions today. I think it's going to be quite provocative, and simply because the title that I say in the thumbnail is photography dead. I say it because there are a couple of things I would like to reflect and also ask Rod's opinion, because you recently been to the Adobe Max conference, right? The convention.
Yeah. I mean, can I just clarify, by the way?
Yeah,
this
sure.
This was Bodmin jail. It's a hotel. Yes. All right, just saying.
Okay.
So
right.
Yeah, I didn't go to Adobe Max. One of my colleagues did. I went to the pre-conference briefing.
Yep.
That they do to tell you everything they're going to talk about, and I have written a story about it. The thing is, the story I wrote was not completely positive, so I don't know if Digital Camera World is running yet, but I kind of put it out about a week afterwards just to let all the hype and the dust settle.
Sure.
But there were things in that I wasn't a big fan of.
No, I think this is the whole kind of discussion, or the theme surrounding the discussion in today's chat. And I would like to hear from all of you your opinion about what we are going to discuss. But there are a few areas, perhaps, there are too many to discuss, but I'm trying to focus on a few things. First of all, I think Rod just disappeared for some reason. He has muted himself. No idea what happened there. But first of all, is about artificial intelligence. The reason I mentioned about to Rod that when he went to the Adobe Max is that in this year's conference they have specifically have a big focus on artificial intelligence, especially in the AI generative functions on both the Photoshop and also the upcoming Lightroom as well. So this is going to be something that we had kind of touched based on before, just haven't been able to explore it in more detail. But now I think at this time maybe we open up the trying to open up the discussion here just to see what happened exactly, what sort of effect, impact that will have on your photography, for instance. Because for me, I think that AI has becoming quite a thing in a consumer's point of view. For instance, Rod is back.
I didn't go anywhere. I don't know what happened there, so I just reconnected. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. And so basically what I just go back a little bit now. Just basically, first thing we want to talk about is artificial intelligence, because this is something that I believe Adobe is heavily focused on from this point onward, for all the future development of the software in both Photoshops and also Lightroom. But they are not the only one. You see on one, you see DxO, you see all the others are slowly heading that way. So does that signal something to photographers? Does it mean something to photographer, or does it really saying something that if you got little people in the background, it's not a perfect photograph, you just have to perfect it by erasing it, but not just by simply cloning it, but using AI to remove it or enhance it?
Yeah, so this was one of the things that worried me. It took me a while to write this piece. I'll find out if it's been published yet. This is what bothered me. I think we're getting into a period of confusion in photography, because I think we're getting in a bit of a muddle over whether we want to record things as they are or how we want them to be.
Yep.
So, I mean, one of the gist of my article was that I've got a picture of my old dog who's not here anymore, which is very sad, but I wouldn't want an AI version. I wouldn't want it. There are things that are very precious to you because they represent things that actually existed and happened and were real. So that's what was disturbing to me about the Adobe Max presentation. It's as if Adobe is no longer particularly interested in what's real, if it ever was, and he's only interested in what sells, which is AI. So that was the thing that bothered me. And I had to think about it quite a lot myself to get it clear in my head. And I think this is the crux of it for me. Are we interested in what is actually real? Are we recording a thing that was real and that happened?
Yep. Yeah.
Or are we trying to create a kind of idealized, fictionalized reality? Are we doing non-fiction or are we doing fiction? That's what you decide as an author. That's what we have to decide as photographers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, there are a couple of things here. I mean, that struck me first, and but if you look at Adobe's software suite, in particular Photoshop, Photoshop has always been not just a photo editor, but also an art creation program. You can create artwork from Photoshop itself. You can blend in with other different montages and create all sorts of shapes and forms and shadow, whatever, anything. You can create some art pieces on there. So technically, Photoshop isn't really photos, so to speak, and is all about image creation, artwork, and creation. Lightroom, on the other hand, is more photo related because it's a photo management system. Somehow it becomes an editor itself because now it's got more or less the same features as Adobe Camera Raw. You can adjust a lot of parameters within the Lightroom itself, and now including a lot of the AI features, the regenerative removal, for instance, mask layering, and all the other stuff there. It has somehow become a fairly powerful editor on its own. Obviously, you can't do everything. There's still things that Photoshop is better, or some other plugins are better than Lightroom itself. But it's more or less you can do, I would say, 95% of the photo editing within Lightroom. You don't have to jump out to the program and do everything there. But at the same time, like you said, there is moment that you want to capture, but there are image you want to create. So these are two very distinctive items. People may mix them together these days because I think as a photographer, we capture the moment. We freeze the moment by, actually recording what exactly happened at that moment in time. An image can be defined in a more broader sense. It's not just about a photograph of that moment, but can also be, something be edited afterward, and it being cropped, being manipulated. It's just an image, and so it's a very two different things altogether. But I think that's the problem with now Apple, Google, and all the others now heavily advertising the smartphone's capabilities in AI removal, AI enhanced, AI face swapping, and things like that. Consumers now don't kind of blur, they don't understand exactly what moment is or what images are, and they simply blur them together as I just want the best version of ourselves in a group party. We've got a group photo, we want everybody smiling at the camera, no blinking, nothing, and just want all the happy faces in one photo, instead of trying to do a few takes and make sure that one of the photo works. So I don't know. Do you think it's a good thing? Because it is happening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well later. But do you think it's a good thing that like these companies like Apple and Google are kind of in a way pushing consumers or brainwashing them in a way to think of what images are or what photographs really are?
It's difficult. You just expressed exactly what I've been thinking, that we have to be very clear as photographers, even as consumers. There is a difference between things that were real, that mattered, and images you want to create for other purposes. And I think that it became clear to me that Adobe's big push, Adobe's there to make money, of course it is. His big push is towards creators and photographers who are themselves selling things to end users. So you didn't hear anything about Adobe showing people how to better find their favorite photographs or using AI to kind of collate all their memories, a bit like Apple Photos does. There was nothing there that I saw for consumers, or as I tend to break people down into buyers and sellers. So there's a lot there for people selling.
Yeah.
you know, making videos more cheaply, making videos out of imperfect assets or incomplete assets.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a lot there for people selling images, marketing, products, um, advertising.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything there for people who take photographs for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't think there's not been very much movement in that sense for a
No.
long time. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we were saying that still photography cameras hadn't really
Yes.
advanced very much over years.
No.
I think it's the same with still image editing. It hasn't really moved on. And I think, I'm sure you're going to have a few things to say about AI just as I will, but even in image editing, where has AI really got us? It papers over the cracks. It makes
Yeah.
the world look the place we want it to be, not the place it is.
No.
How far do we go with that?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, maybe people can call me old school or a bit old fashioned in photography. I would rather wait for a sunny day, go to a place to photograph a sunny place. If I want the sun to be there, I don't want to edit the sun in using AI or create an image that looks like sunny when I actually shot it in a horrible, dull, flat day, for instance. But on one is kind of like one of the pioneers in that is sky swapping and AI kind of like toning by creating those images. But it is heading that way now, and people are certainly especially Instagrammers. A lot of Instagrammers always wanted the best version of themselves when they travel. For them, these sort of programs would definitely be helpful because you can't get sun all the time. You can't get vibrant colors all the time. So what they do is just a click of a button, everything just enhances itself.
Well, a photographer would make a photograph out of whatever they found, whatever was there. You would say it's your job as a photographer to make it into a good photograph. So
Yep.
you can't say, "Oh, I'm not going to take any pictures because the sun's not out." Well, you can take good pictures without the sun. It just needs a bit of know-how and a bit of skill and a bit of open-mindedness about what a good photograph is. But I mean, you're talking about Instagrammers. They are definitely the sellers. They're not the buyers. They're selling an ideal version of themselves in an ideal world
Yep.
for engagement, for likes, for sponsorship.
Yep.
They're selling.
Sure.
So
Yeah, and I don't know how the listeners think about AI, and I already see a couple of comments saying, AI has nothing to do with photography. Um, I certainly believe so. If you're strictly talking about photography in its art form, but certain in commercial photography, I think I kind of mentioned it before. There is a usage in commercial photography, like you said, Rod, about selling stuff. If you're selling a product, if you're selling certain things, if you take an image for that product, for instance, I think AI would help dramatically in terms of like changing the color palettes or changing the actual background or manipulating certain things would
yeah,
would help the creation process, and certainly it may actually affect some of the digital artists who used to be a job, because there are jobs called digital artists, basically add stuff to the image for commercial purposes. But if AI is there now, and if AI can generate these sort of images, these sort of artwork or art montages, just lay it on top of the original image, and that means these digital artists will become obsolete at some point, because we won't need them anymore, and you can simply type in a few prompts, and several version of that particular thing you want to achieve is already laid out in front of you. You can just swap parameters which one you like. In terms of having an artist there drawing different thing out, and so this is quite worrying for some jobs, but this is also part of the evolution in technologies, I believe. What do you
well,
think, Rob?
I think it's gonna kill stock photography stone dead.
Yeah,
Why would you pay for a license for a piece
yeah,
of stock imagery, which by its very definition is a generic image type? If that's all you want, just type it into Firefly
yeah.
and it'll give you something. I'll see if I can find an image. I'll email it to you, Jimmy. I don't know how easy it would be for you
Yeah, you can email it
to
to me, and I
put
will
it
be
on
able
the
to.
chat. I'll send you two. Is it that one? Yes, it is that one and that one. Okay. I'll do that now while we're talking.
Sure. Yep. So that is certainly very interesting when it comes to artificial intelligence in photography. I personally don't like to use it. I like it to be as raw as possible because if whatever I see, I capture it, and that will be the end of it. Yes, I color grade my photos, I edit my photos, but not to the sense that I manipulate them. I'm never really a Photoshop person myself, anyway, and to be quite honest, and quite frankly, I'm not an expert in photoshopping, and so if you ask me to make a person 2 sizes slimmer or changing, a lot of the backgrounds into something else, I'm not the type of person who can do that professionally. There are other people way better than I do, but I'm a photographer, so I like to capture the moment. Even portrait terms. Yeah, I may touch up some of the skin tones and some of the skin imperfection, for instance, for weddings or close-up portraits, obviously at client's request. If I do that, and then they need to be aware of it and they're happy about it, then I'll remove the certain spots or whatever, certain scars from their faces. But that's a commercial decision more than the actual photography itself. For anything that I capture, whether it be travel or anything like that, is really nothing to do with AI at all, and I just prefer the way it is. That's how I see the place, and that's how I captured it. But this is something that a lot of especially younger photographers, like the teens, even my kids now, they're starting to, have awareness of artificial intelligence. They're starting telling me about, oh, do you know that, Google can change your face? Is that so? Even as young as my children now, they only like 11 coming into 12, but they already starting to see advertising online, like talking about AI swapping, talking about AI enhancement. So these things are educating these young people, and over time, when they grow up, when they start to have their first camera, all they think about is, okay, whatever I capture can be changed later, can be enhanced later. So they're not really thinking about the actual execution of the photograph itself. When is the best time to take a photograph? When is the best moment? How do I click the shutter button at the right time? I think they will miss that sort of skills. It's almost like driving an automatic car. You just somehow you forgot about how to drive a manual car, and it's too automated. And now is in photography with AI generation, regenerative AI is going to be even worse for people who really enjoy the pureness of photography.
I think so. I think. Do you remember all the crackdown on junk food I'd seen to children?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time we had a junk stereotypes crackdown on imagery for young children. But I think it's true that a lot of the old skills will disappear, because I think a few things are happening. I think one of the things that's happening is that people in the past, people wanted to be artists.
Yep.
Now they just want to be popular.
Yep.
So they've stopped trying to satisfy themselves. They're trying to satisfy a large audience now. I think that's one thing that's happened. I think the other is that people aren't particularly interested in hobbies. People don't enjoy learning things. They don't get a sense of achievement from mastering something that's not straightforward. That seems to have gone somehow.
Yeah.
The world is now full of products that save you from the efforts of thinking and learning, and people are buying into it.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly another subject that we're going to talk about, is about technology. That's outside. I'm more specific talk about camera technologies. Is that a lot of these new cameras, the new technologies that the camera makers promote, are more relating to automations and assistance. However, as a photographer, we all know that these sort of features are there to assist you to take a photograph, not to replace whatever you know as a photographer, as in terms of skills and knowledge. But once again, I think a lot of the newcomers, a lot of the new photographers who have not enough experience in photography, or just beginner who doesn't appreciate a lot of the technical skills, for instance, in like simple exposure triangle, and a lot of people just don't have the conceptions or understanding of what exactly that is, and they just turn on everything auto, have AI this, AI that, and I think that in some way is blinded them in so much that they forgot about a lot of the fundamentals. And when it comes to taking a photograph and then just complaining about, oh, this doesn't, this camera doesn't take good pictures. We talked about this many, many times. You can actually pick up any cameras nowadays, as old as 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old cameras. You can take brilliant pictures. It's nothing to do with the AI text. If you look at all the older cameras, they have the simple face detect AF. They don't have AI subject recognition tracking and things like that. If you know how to operate a camera, you can take brilliant photos without a doubt. So
There's so many,
again,
so many examples, aren't there? I can imagine, excuse me, a future Google or Apple phone that has AI to work out whether you need exposure compensation or not.
yep.
It looks at the subject and says, oh, that's a wedding dress, we need to up the exposure. Or, oh no, that's a black cat in a coal cellar, we need to turn down the exposure a bit. They're going to sell that as a magical AI product, whereas to anyone who takes photographs, well, you just turn a dial because you can see what you need to do. It's making something that doesn't require much ordinary intelligence into a very expensive AI solution, which is annoying, really.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, though, this is exactly what's happening around the world at the moment. And I mean, a lot of us are, I'm not, when I say us, I'm talking about in general terms. A lot of the consumers who are buying cameras these days are chasing the latest tech more than the actual, trying to master the photography skills. So they often think that the latest camera would get them better pictures, better quality. To a certain extent, technically, perhaps, I mean, at pixel level, you may see some improvement, but in general terms, in a day-to-day basis, 99% of the time, you probably will not notice the difference between the camera that you buy in 2024 against a camera that is 5 years old. I mean, I'm just talking about in general terms. And only until you really push the camera to the very, the technological limits of the camera, then you start to notice something is missing from the older camera to the new camera. But how often do we push the camera to that sort of limit? I would say 99% of the photographers out there won't even achieve that. Even myself, I don't push the camera to that sort of limit. I'm just not that type of photographer. I operate myself under the lights. I will see the light as appropriate. They will click a picture. Let's say if my camera can push to ISO 1 million, I won't use 1 million. I know that that's going to be really horrible anyway. So max, I'm going to shoot at 6400. I'll look for the light, use a fast prime lens to gather as much light as possible. Do the old school way. That's how I do it. And then rather than relying on technologies to push the camera to that sort of limit, and I know it sucks anyway at the end of the day, so I just won't do that. But that's exactly what's happening right now.
I think if you look at the number of times when AI in a camera is useful, it's quite rare, which is I think probably what you just said. But I think people are being scared into it by publishers, by reviewers, by YouTubers. Not us, obviously, but
yeah, we're good.
Because the market is now dominated by affiliate revenue.
Yeah.
Independent creators only make money if you buy something. So that really creates a conflict of interest. It's made me very uncomfortable. It's made me change what I do on my website. It's a conflict of interest because now if you want to make money as an independent, you can only do it if you talk people into buying stuff. And you're not going to trash it, are you? You're always going to say that this year's camera is miles better than last year's. This is why you have to have it. Or this lens or this software or whatever it is. You make your living from getting other people to buy stuff, which is an uncomfortable thing. I mean, when I started out in magazines. You make your living by people buying a magazine. But that's all right because you make it. You can feel a certain pride in it, certain control over it.
Yeah.
It's one thing selling something you make, but it's quite another as an affiliate marketeer, just selling stuff other people make. You're just becoming like a 0 hours contract salesperson, really.
Yeah.
Depending on how you look at it. So I think the market this financial model for YouTubers, Instagrammers, independent creators is driving them to getting people to buy stuff.
Yeah.
It's bound to. How can it do anything else?
Yeah, it is unfortunately a vicious circle, I think, and
Yeah,
like you said, a lot of the smaller content creators, and if they're given the chance to have a product to look at, to review, or to post something, like you said, they are going to say good things because they want to build up a relationship. They want to have a further reviews from this company. They want to send them products. And it's unlikely they're going to have anything negative to say. It's going to be hard for people who can actually have an unbiased review.
it is.
There are big channels, big like Petapixels, for instance, and maybe DP reviews, and some of the bigger channels and some of the bigger magazines still have the ability to be unbiased simply because they have the exposures and they can be relatively neutral to a lot of stuff. But then again, you're talking about minority now in in today's market. If you look at influencers, the amount of influencers on YouTube who are doing photography reviews, camera or lenses, you are literally talking about millions. And then like companies sent out like tens of thousands of these lenses to different creators to do reviews, and it's just crazy.
Well, I had to make a decision a few years back over I shouldn't really be talking about specific products, but I used to write about Luminar quite a lot in the early days because I
Yep.
felt it's very interesting, very cheap, full of promise. Things have changed rather a lot in how they market Luminar,
Yep.
and I'm no longer comfortable promoting it. And also, the latest version I didn't think was all that great, so I've had to kind of say, well, look, I can say it's great when it isn't, and I might get more money. And how am I going to feel about that? And I thought I'm going to feel like shit. So I
Yeah.
just stopped writing about it really.
Yeah. I mean.
I think there are a couple of other new products just out
Yeah. Yeah.
that I'm going to find myself in the same position with. But
Really. Okay.
ultimately, you have to live with yourself. I mean, I
You
think
do.
possibly the way I might do it in future, I might look at doing ebooks or
Yeah.
something of that sort. I will only be happy, I think, promoting product either that I think deserves it, and there aren't so
Yeah.
many of those,
Yeah.
or one that I've made myself.
Sure. I
It's difficult,
I
isn't
feel
it?
I feel the same way, and you see that I think for a couple of years now, I have slowly reduced my reviews on softwares. I mean, pretty much like you. I used to be a heavy promoter for for the likes of DxO. I think the Pure
Yeah,
Raw is revolutionary for a lot
yeah,
of photographers, especially Micro Four Third users, simply because their noise reduction is phenomenal. It's really good.
yeah, yeah.
But then, like, since I see the Pure 1 and to 2 to 3 and now it's 4, I just felt it's missing something there. The way they force people to upgrade just because the older software doesn't support the latest model, and in order for it to be compatible, even though the actual base raw file structure is literally identical to the old one, it's just a little bit of metadata changes, and they just wouldn't do that, and you have to force you to upgrade and pay money to upgrade to the latest version to gain the access for that.
I think in fairness to DxO, this is a standard model across the software industry.
Yep.
So software publishers need predictable, reliable revenue.
Yep.
If they can't get it from a subscription, they'll do what they always used to do,
Well,
do
but that
annual updates.
but that's the
But
thing, right? That's the thing. I mean, I would rather they being honest and upfront, say, okay, this is the subscription fee.
yeah,
This is the subscription. I'll give you as many updates as needed if you pay for subscription. I'd rather pay them subscription because I knew I'm going to be charged anyway every year if I'm going to get access to the newer model, which I probably needed, because every couple of years I upgrade my camera. Because the needs, and I just simply break down. I have to get a new camera, and for
yeah.
all the new cameras I get, I won't get supported, and I have to pay more to upgrade the software to be able to access the raw file noise reduction software. And for
Well,
that, I might as well pay the subscription.
the publishers will say that's because it involves development costs to keep software up to date with new cameras, etc., etc. I'm not going to justify the whole thing for them, but I think essentially even if you only buy software that has a perpetual license,
Yep.
you still have an ongoing cost of ownership. It's just disguised.
Yeah.
It's still going to cost you money to keep on using it one way or the other. But it's always been that way. Always been the
So
way. Even before
so
Adobe came out with subscriptions, you had to get the latest version of Elements or Photoshop
yeah.
for compatibility with the latest cameras. Always that
Sure.
way.
Sure. I mean that is fine. But like I'm just thinking, the way that people claim that that this is a perpetual license, you're going to own it forever. It's simply nonsense. Like I just don't see it that way anymore. Not like I
No,
think that
no,
the only
no.
people still do that is probably Apple. Like Final Cut, you pay the one license fee at the moment. It's for life at the moment. There's no subscription or anything. Unlike Final Cut on the iOS, that which needs a subscription, and but the desktop version is a one-off fee. So even though it's a £250, it sounds quite a lot of money, but at the moment, I've owned it for about 6-7 years now. I mean, I don't have to pay any fee to update or anything like that. Is already is inclusive. So if you break it down to like 10 years ownership, I'm only paying 25 quid a year, so it's actually quite cheap. And but on the other hand, if you look at all these updates, all these forced upgrades that you have to do to access the latest features or latest compatibility, I just find that you might as well just make it a subscription model, and rather than okay, you own it, but it's
Yeah.
not compatible with your new camera that you come out next year. And I think to
You own it
that, it's
forever,
just a bit
but
silly.
you own it forever, but it'll only be any use for a year. Kind of.
Yeah. So
But
what is
listen,
wrong with the model?
but if I don't know how we got to this from AI, but I'll just mention Photoshop Elements. Did we bring this up last time? Photoshop has changed the license for Photoshop Elements.
No, I
So
didn't know that. No.
when you buy Photoshop Elements now, it's a fixed 2-year license term.
Right.
After 2 years, you will have to buy another one. You can't just go on using it forever. I wouldn't. I don't want to be rude in case anyone here uses Elements.
So you can't use it, or you just won't get updates.
You can't use it. It stops working. I imagine they didn't go into great detail, but I imagine the mechanism is 2 years after you first run it, you'll have to go into your Adobe account to reauthorize it or upgrade, or it'll just stop working.
Right. So that is basically subscription, even though it isn't
Yeah,
kind of like
it's
look that way.
it's a 2-year plan.
Yeah, it's a 2-year plan.
Basically, it is,
Yep.
isn't it?
Yep.
A 2-year
I don't-
upfront plan.
I don't know how does everybody think about this subscription thing that we all face today. With all sorts of software that we use, all the plugins. Like I don't know anything really. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind it, but if like. I think Adobe, in some way, the photographer suite, if you're just looking at Photoshop and Lightroom package, it's $9.99 a month in the UK, and which is actually reasonable if you think about it. Because if you look at all the other software now, even Pure Raw, if you look at Pure Raw, just a small noise reduction plugin, the upgrade will cost you more than that. Well, not quite as much as that, but then you think about what it allows you to do compared to Photoshop and Lightroom, it's nothing, right? And
I think the Adobe photography plan is cheap, really cheap. There's lots to say against it. Lots of people object on principle to subscriptions. I don't, but I know people do. And it's a bit sneaky in that you're not paying every month. You're paying a year at a time in installments.
Yep.
It's like buying motor insurance on monthly installments. You're still paying for the year and you're committed to it. So you can't just back out of your Adobe photography plan when you feel like it. No. But that aside, it is cheap. Does anyone remember how Photoshop, I think Photoshop 6 was about £560?
It was expensive.
And,
I remember very expensive.
Lightroom alone was, 140, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
So cheap now. But we got there from AI. We should get back to AI, shouldn't we?
we
should we sell subscriptions?
I don't know why. Well, money is still very important. Money is still very important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Especially now, the cost of photography has spiraled in the last few years, and that's another thing we should have another discussion about. It's the cost of
Perhaps so.
photography,
Perhaps
which
so.
which is completely misunderstood by many people. People think, oh, let's just buy the camera and the lens, that will be the end of it. But no, start looking at software
Not really.
plugins. It will all start
And storage.
and the worst thing is these are ongoing as well. It's not a one-off. If you buy a camera, it can be technically a one-off. You don't mind it. If you use it
Yeah.
only like occasionally, a camera could technically last you for 10, 15, 20 years if you don't mind the technology. So, but software is an ongoing thing as we speak now. Things that you have to pay monthly, yearly, or things like that. It's annoying, but then something to talk about
So
another time, I suppose.
so I've got a Dropbox account for sharing files with publishers I work for. Um, that means a monthly payment, a subscription, which
Yeah.
people seem to take for granted. But you could apply the same argument. Surely I could give them some money and buy
Yeah.
myself some hard disk space, and then it should be free forever. But that's not how it works.
No,
But
no.
AI in cameras, what are we talking about? We're talking about AI autofocus, aren't we?
Yes.
And there, I think if you are an action or a sports or an event photographer who has to work very fast and can't miss a shot and can't choreograph anything, then you can see the sense in it. If you are just a regular photographer thinking, well, look, with AI AF, I don't even have to tell the camera where the subject is.
No.
There's a part of me that thinks, oh, for heaven's sake, you know where you need to focus. Just do it. Why do you need AI?
And that is why I think that the AI tracking or AI subject recognition has taken away the instinct, a photographer instinct that you're supposed to develop and hone over time. As a photographer, once you learn the skills, you're supposed to be more aware of what's surrounding, what's happening, and you should be learning this the experience of anticipations, and also when to execute a photograph. But with AI subject recognitions now, you're just relying on that little box in the viewfinder highlighting that face. It's like, oh yeah, just let the AI does its job, because it's following the guy or the girl in front of the lens, and when it happens, it just click it. You don't have to worry about or trying to anticipate any sort of moment, because I just don't have to think about it anymore. In some way, I think if you know how everything works, you're experienced photographer, yes, certainly that certainly will help you get the shot you want quicker and perhaps even more accurately. However, if you don't have any sort of understanding in terms of anticipating a moment to happen, if something fails, let's say, we talked about this, right? If the AI fails, somehow
Yeah.
it just
If
doesn't
you
work
don't,
for that moment. That's it.
you
You
don't know
missed the
why.
shot. You
You
missed
don't
the
know
shot.
why. You don't know what you can do about it. You don't know how to take over.
Yep.
But I'm going to bring back my theory of marketing. You identify a problem, you exaggerate it, then you sell a solution. So you identify a problem. A lot of people think cameras are complicated. So instead of selling them a product that explains them, they'll say, yes, they are complicated, but here's an AI tool that does it for you. It's only like $900 more than you would have paid or whatever. But that's how it works, isn't it? A lot of AI tools are inventing or exaggerating an issue and then
Yep.
selling a solution that's quite expensive. And so, I mean, two completely different ways to focus. So I've got my EOS R8, which has got subject recognition AI AF,
Yep.
and I can imagine there might be situations where it'd be useful. But if I have it enabled, I've got no way of knowing what the camera's going to do. I've got no idea what's going on. I have to wait and
No.
see what it does. Or I've got my Nikon D800 from about 12 years earlier, and I've got this AF on button on the back. So what I do with that is I look at the thing, think I need to focus on that, put the focus point on it, press the button, that's the focus done. It doesn't have to change again, it's done.
Yep.
Two completely different approaches. One of them using AI,
Yep.
where I don't really know what's going to happen, but it'll
Yep.
probably be all right. And one, a very simple, direct process. I understand completely.
It is actually very true. I would like to ask the audience actually a question about what Rod just said. How many of you have got the latest human subject or any camera that with
Yeah.
human subject recognition? For instance, if you photograph people, to basically enable the entire sensor area as a focusing point. So like basically letting the computer decide where to focus. When it finds a human, it will highlight the box, it focuses on that and tracks it continuously. Or you're the type of person who like to change it to a pinpoint AF, and then you just move the AF point yourself manually with the joystick at the back and focus that way. I would like to hear how many of you do that, and because like Rod said, these are totally different approach. For me, I still like to move the AF point around and just to make sure that I focus the right places, or at least in terms of composition, I know that's the composition I want. I stick with the composition. I let the subject move into the composition and click it that way. While the whole area AI subject recognition, whatever you want to call it these days, is very random in a way, and I often find that if I use that method, I lose the composition or I just lose the image completely.
Yes, and it is important that you know what the camera is going to do, isn't it? For example, with Sony AI AF, you have to tell it what to look for. So
Yep.
it's only half automatic. With the Canon, it can figure out what's in the scene and it can choose the subject automatically. But even then, there's going to be some doubt. So
Yep.
with the Sony, I found that if I had said to people, and I was photographing a landscape or a street scene, and somebody walked in at the edge, it'd say, "Oh no, I'll focus on that instead." Great, thanks for nothing.
Which happens a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And the other alternative is that, let's say you've got a picture of somebody and their pet dog. You've got human, it's going to detect the human, it's going to detect the dog. It's got to pick one or the other, because that's one of the things I think a lot of a newer audience doesn't understand about focusing. You can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Just because it can identify two things, it can't get them both in focus. So when's the camera going to think, no, wait a minute, the dog's more important. No, wait a minute, the person's more important. When is that crossover point? As a photographer, you need to know. You can't just hope the camera is smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah. So in a way, what Rod is trying to suggest is if you
sorry, I'll say it slower. I'll say it shorter.
In a situation where there are multiple subjects in front of the cameras, whether people or animal or anything, and that's when a lot of the AI subject recognition fails, because especially when you use ultra fast lenses that has shallow depth of field, because the lens can only pick one subject at a time to focus.
Yeah.
And in that case, it will just confuse itself. Which one should I focus? You know what to focus, but the computer doesn't. So that means you have to manually override it by switch that thing off and do it the old-fashioned way, using the joystick, point the bloody thing into the subject you want to focus and click it, right? It's no other way around it, because I've been to weddings, I've been to group photographs, group sessions, and I photograph even animals at some point. There are a couple of like last week, when I went to photograph and film deers, there are multiple deer at any one time. I just want to focus one, so I actually switch off the AI subject recognition and manually override it, and using AF point selected by myself, use joystick at the back to point to the thing that I want to focus on, not relying on the AI to pick the one for me, because I know it won't pick the right one most of the time, and it would just simply confuses itself.
Or it'll find about 6 or 8 faces and say, which one do you want? And then you have to fiddle with the joystick, by which time the shot's gone. It's a slow way of of reaching a decision. It's much quicker just to put the AF point where it needs to be for the person you want and shoot. AI can often give you a much slower and less predictable solution to a thing you can do yourself. But I think a modern audience has been so convinced that cameras are complicated, they'll buy anything.
Well, but then again, like driven by YouTube and also Instagram and TikTok influencers influence is that a lot of them, to be quite honest, a lot of the people who buy camera these days are not necessarily photograph demanding environments. We know where have multiple subjects happening in successions in quick time. For instance, in tricky lighting situations, most people would buy them for capturing family lives, holidays and things like that. And to be quite frank, in those situations, a lot of the AI subject recognition works pretty well because they are isolated. Most likely you'll be fairly close to your kids, for instance. You'll be photographing them, so IAF face detection, those will work, perfectly fine. Those are great tech. But what we are talking about now is when you're in a slightly different scenarios, when you're in professional environment, photographing a wedding, when you have like 100 people in front of you, and you have the bride and groom right in the middle or off center. The AI subject simply won't know which one you want to focus. There are loads of people. They're going to be like a million boxes highlighting in the frame. It's going to be very confusing. So it's a very different scenario, and certainly not for everybody.
I guess as well, Jimmy, you'll often be in a situation where during the wedding, the bride and groom are not the nearest and they're not the furthest. They're kind of sandwiched between groups of people nearer and further away. The AI is not going to pick them, but they are the ones you have to get in focus.
Yes, that's right, and that's a lot of the time that when I photographing at event, for instance, I actually don't use any AI subject recognition at all. I actually switch them all off. I still use AF, but then I just basically manually select the AF point I want in the frame to manually do it that way. I got a way better successful rate and hit rate than simply let the computer decide. That is about the tech side of it, and people may not understand it, but like I said, for majority of the buyers or camera buyers these days, a lot of the new techs would definitely work for them simply because the situation they're in or the purpose they're using the camera for, like holiday, for instance, like I said, for capturing the kids running around, they are isolated single subjects, and that means they're usually okay. But wait until you want to photograph your kids in school, where like running with a bunch of other kids. That's the time when you're starting to see, oh, but how come the AF doesn't track my kids or something like that? That's the time when you find that the AF starting to confuse itself because there's so many kids running around the same focal plane, and they're all in the same round of distance, and the computer was simply, oh, which one to pick? I don't know which one to pick.
So in the spirit of fairness, Young and Ray 15 has said, how'd you get a username like that? I'm intrigued. He says, or she says, I have the A72 with Sony's AI AF stuff. I think there's a perfect middle ground. Use the zone box, AI subject tracking, focus, recompose, and it works. I think that very often AI in specific circumstances, when you know what it's going to do, will be effective. But I think you have to be that kind of photographer with that kind of subject.
Yeah.
It's not been effective for me. So it's difficult. It's difficult to. I find it difficult to recommend because you don't know how other people like to shoot and what they shoot.
I mean, like I said, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think all these texts are fantastic. They do work in isolated instances or cases. But like what I said at the beginning of the chat is that a lot of these technologies are there to assist you as a photographer. You decide when to employ them because different scenario or different situation will need different text to help. And zone AF, AI AF is certainly work for certain things, like you said there, but also at the same time, what Rod just put up the example earlier about, let's say, the bride and groom is sandwiched in between people. And that's the point that even when you have zone, it may still confuse depending on how big the zone is. So you may have to narrow it down to really small. It must well just pinpoint focus point instead of having a big zone AF, because otherwise the system will still confuse with whatever surrounding the or within the zone where to focus. So it really depending on photographer and what sort of thing you'll be photographing, because there is no right or wrong answers there. Like I said, the texts are good. You just need to know when to use it. But at the same time, again, because a lot of the beginners are more specifically worrying about the new generation and the new buyer, newcomers are confused with technologies and they don't know how to use these technologies. And when they don't get a shot, they simply blame the technology. Oh, it's not working. Let's wait for the next update, or let's wait for the newer camera because it will be better. That's the worry that I'm looking at, and more on a long-term basis. And these photographers just simply don't want to hone their skill and trying to learn photography, learn about executing the photograph, and just simply relying on the technology.
I think I guess that's what worries me. That in order to get the most out of AI AF, you do have to have a very good understanding of what it's going to do and the options within your own autofocus system. And to me, that seems to require considerable amount of concentration and brain power.
Yep.
That's only how I feel about it. Much less than if I just stick to what I know. So that's gonna. I know that's gonna make me sound like some kind of throwback, but I think it needs pointing out that very often an older solution can be simpler,
Yep.
and simpler is usually better in my book.
Well, yes. I mean, like, I think for any interesting parties who want to learn about photography, learn, to better the photography, need to really start from the ground. Like, you need to start from the basics and start looking at what exposure triangle really means. What is ISO? What's shutter speed? What's aperture? These are fundamentals. Then we learn about composition, reading the light properly, understanding the subject. All these are really basic stuff. And the AI and all the other great techs out there are there to assist you in certain situations. And because you have to understand, once you have the understanding, you will be able to know when to employ these technologies to better capture your subjects, because they are there to help you, not to replace what you already know. Remember that. I think that's the main thing.
I think so as well, and I think I've got absolutely nothing against AI and automation that can do quickly what you would have done anyway. It's when it quickly does something you wouldn't necessarily have done yourself that it becomes a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you guys think about the AI tech in cameras? Are they also now another point of discussion is that, do you think that camera makers nowadays, because we talked about sensor technology is kind of almost stagnant now, we haven't seen sort of major advances over the last few years. Autofocus system is also about the same. They're no longer advertising how fast they focus. They just simply say that yes, it is autofocus, and I have new AI subject recognition. That's more the new advertising now. It's AI this, AI that. But now you see that they all have it now. So what's next? Because I don't see any other new things coming along that is going to blow your mind. And to be quite honest, I think AI subject recognition is a little bit overrated. Like, and I know, like I said, it's a great tech, but I
That's we
think it's a
need to
bit
get away
overrated.
from that.
It's a little bit overrated. And but however, they are there. I'm embracing it, so I do use it. Just depending on situation, of course. Like I said. But what do you think? What else is going to be there now? We kind of got away from the megapixel race. We got away from the ISO race. We got away of all these speed, how many frame per second race. What else is there? Oop, I think Rod is gone frozen. Rod is not moving. Okay, let's see some comments from you guys as well, and let's see. So Young and Gray 15 say that I absolutely agree that understanding what camera is going to do is the most important thing, and you can get good images with whatever focus system you understand it. Cheers. I think so. Actually, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. I know we talked about switching system or moving from one camera to another. So that's the thing as well. If you know your basics, if you know how to change the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture, that's kind of the only three things you need to worry about in terms of photography. So technically, you can operate any camera, any brand at any time, right? There's no difference whatsoever once you know those three basics. And that's exactly what our point is. Different camera system may have different menu interfaces, different features, and different things. Once you master the basics, you can literally move around to different system, and people can just simply give you a camera, you hold it, you can just drive it. Just be like when you know how to operate a manual car, you can simply just drive different cars. And if such a thing in the future, when you have all electrics and all different operating system, and you might start to struggle yourself into it, I'm not sure that will be the case. And but I think in cameras, I think that certainly is true, because I know a lot of the camera menu system can be very different from one brand to another, so it can be quite confusing if you want to find features. However, and if you do know your basics, once again, you can very simply move around to different cameras and without any issues. And that's why I can test cameras from Olympus and Lumix to Sony to other brands, because I don't have to technically really have to read up on the menus and things like that. I just simply operate them if we just want to test out the image quality of the camera. And so it's as simple as that. Oh, you're back, Rod. Something happened to you.
I've had to switch networks. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed now.
Okay, right. So what we just talked about is that I think Young and Gray is quite right. Once you know the fundamentals, there doesn't really matter what system you use, and it's simple as that. And I think that is really the key. And that's why I always urge any of my students when it comes to learning photography is that do master the basics. The fundamentals is very important for you to grow as a photographer, so that you don't have to rely on technologies as much, because when they work, they do work. But when they do not, and that's when you get into trouble if you don't understand the fundamentals, to override it, to do it manually. Same as autofocus. I know we talked about it earlier, but AF does fail as well. No matter how reliable they are these days. And I have some fantastic AF cameras here, and full frame APS-C and also a Micro Four Third. I do find all of them failed one way or the other in different lighting situations, so they're not 100% reliable. So in that instance, you will have to resort to back to manual focus. So if you don't know how to manual focus something, you're going to be in trouble. And if you worry about manual focusing, I think that's another thing you have to master as well, is to get used to how to manual focus your lenses, even though you may not need it. But when it does, I think it's going to save your image, full stop.
Well, definitely. I think manual focusing, excuse me, getting over a cold. It's not as popular today as it once was, because generally speaking, AF will be more accurate.
Yes.
But manual focusing isn't particularly difficult to do. And even if you don't want to zoom in or use focus aids, you can do what we used to do with film SLRs. You just rock the focus to and fro and get a sense of when it's sharpest, and that's when you focused. And we did that for decades, and we made it. So
manual focus bracketing in a way.
well, kind of, yeah. But when you're looking at a viewfinder, you don't need to magnify the image to get a sense of that middle point where everything is sharpest.
Yeah.
I don't know why that made it clearer, but it seemed to. But yeah,
you're looking at the focusing patch, right?
So I think when we focus manually, it's like contrast AF that we're using our eyes for. Yeah, it's gone a little bit out that way. So it's going to be just right, bang in the middle of those 2 points.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, I mean, like the modern AF system is really good, but the thing is, when they work, they really work brilliantly. They're more accurate than ever before. But when they fail spectacularly. So you just have to be ready. When that happens, you just have to manually override it and do it yourself. And I find that for my portrait, for instance, sometimes I do encounter very strong backlit situations when the camera system simply fail to focus. And I'm not talking about Micro Four Third. I'm talking about across the board. A lot of the cameras to date, a lot of my models are 2024. So like these newer cameras, even, they will fail in that sort of lighting situations. Any sort of backlit stuff, they struggle to find a contrast, and that's when they fail completely. And so that's something you have to bear in mind. So not everything works all the time. So when it doesn't, you need to know how to rescue your photograph. But yeah, how can we talk about AF system all of a sudden instead of AI stuff?
So did my email get to Jimmy? I sent you 2 photos.
Oh, you sent me 2 photos, right? Let me see if I get something. And right, you can chat away for now. Let me see.
I can't believe it.
Okay. Oh, Roy Lawton is here. Okay, I've got the images here. Let me see if I can actually bring it up and for you guys to see. Right. Okay, there's 2 dock photos. Is that the one? The dock photos? Oh, Rod is gone again for some reason. And that is fairly strange. Right. Okay, I'm going to save to download photos. Okay, I'm going to bring it up so you guys can see it. And okay, right. Let me just come back here. I'm gonna just change it to showcase. Ah, okay, right. Actually, no, that's the wrong one. So let me just open the images. Hello.
Yeah, sorry, Jimmy, just connectivity issues again. My mesh network is not working very well.
Ah, okay,
Oh, I've
right.
got it again. Can you believe it?
That's strange. And I thought you had
Yeah.
the. Oh, yeah. Hang on. I need to add you back in. Is it? Let me see. Add you
Can
to
you
the
hear
right.
me? Or
Yeah, I can
yeah.
see. I can hear you.
So
Oh, there we go.
so basically, my mesh network. Thank you very much for that. Is deciding not to work for a while. So I've had to go back to connecting directly to my router, which is in
Oh.
the other side of the house. So it's all. I'll sort it out
You just because you've been
when
to
we
jail.
when
That's
we do
why.
this. But I was just asking you if did you did you get the images I sent?
Yes, I'm trying to open them now, and
Did you get my email with images?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes.
It's
Let me
only
just
two.
right. Okay, 1 second. I'm
So
just trying.
one of these is real, the other one is not.
Really? Okay, right. That's interesting. Let me just save.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I have here. Right. I'm gonna open them up. Okay, now
Okay.
I'm gonna bring up the applications up. Let's see. I'm gonna showcase it to see. Right. Okay. There we go. And
Trouble is the file name's a giveaway, but if you can imagine you can't read the thumbnails to the side.
yeah.
One of these is real. Yeah. No, giveaway, giveaway. Never mind.
Uh, but
And
it
one
is
of them
real.
is not.
But it's quite real, isn't it? My God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So one of these is my dog. The other one is not. One of these
Okay.
is a real creature. The other one is a Firefly 3 prompt.
That is quite something. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? You know, they even manipulated the lighting as well, which
I know, I know.
which is crazy, right?
So the way I look at it is, can you show the other one?
Okay, let me just go to the other
Can you
one.
display?
Yep, there you go. Right, this is the other one. Oh, I think Rod is gone again. Yeah, it's totally believable. I'm just shocked to see how well it does the backlit and the light from the side and the shadow. Even the color temperature differences has been manipulated or created by AI. But that, I guess that's the danger of AI, right? You know, and you know exactly how much you want for an image. You know, this is an image, by the way. It's not a moment. You know, a moment you know, because remember exactly what happened there. Okay, right. Let me just go back uh, to Rod as well, just to see. 1 second, and camera. Oh, oh, oh. 1 second. Oh, there you go. There we go.
I Yeah. Sorry about this. I know what a nuisance it is me continually dropping out, but I can't fix my better network straight away. And with my other one, if the signal's below 2 bars, I've had it. So I'm in and out. So sorry, yeah, those two pictures. The second one is actually my dog. The first one is generated entirely by Adobe's Firefly 3 engine.
It it's amazing how real that is. I mean, he even manipulated the
It's
backlit and the shadow color temperature is
Yeah.
slightly different to the warmer area. It is real. It looks real.
So my prompt was just a Jack Russell Terrier chasing a tennis ball.
Huh? I can see
That's
the
all I
tennis ball
did.
there.
But
Yeah, but
it's
that
it's not quite right. It's not quite
no.
right because the ball is in
Yeah.
front of the dog, but
Yep. not quite
looks
chase,
like
not
it's
quite
focused on the
chasing.
background.
Yeah, not quite
But
chasing.
but yeah, this. So I think this highlights an issue with generative AI. The picture I have of my dog, my actual dog, actually means something to me. The generative AI image of a dog has no meaning for me at all.
No.
But if I had a business selling dog food or dog grooming services, or I ran a dog kennel, that'd be perfect. So
Yes.
it's this. I think this is the thing, that AI is brilliant for people selling stuff.
Yep.
But if it comes to the actual meaning of actual things to you,
Yep.
I don't think it's got a lot to offer.
So to summarize it, I think that generative AI has nothing to do with journalism, has nothing to do with recording a moment or to recording something that you would like to remember, because they aren't images that actually happen. They are completely
No,
fabricated from
no.
scratch by an artificial intelligence. And on the other hand, on the commercials perspective, I think we kind of spoke about it earlier, like you said as well, selling stuff for people who need to use these images, not photograph, for to represent something, to brand values, or a product or something like that. And the AI can be great. And but at the same time, you're gonna start to see a lot of commercial photographers, digital artists are gonna run out of jobs soon because they simply don't need them, and that will be my worry, and that could be also the change in the industry as well. And that's something that Rod spoke about the stock photography. Stock photography may not exist in the next 5 to 10 years simply because people don't need to buy them anymore. People just generate them, right? It's simple prompt on a AI engine, and the images will be created for them. So that is something that they need to be thinking about, and also be more careful about what they're going to do, and maybe transition into a slightly different area and do something else altogether, because things that used to be important in the commercial world may not seem that way anymore. And I think that will be the worry for some professions, that's for sure. But for those who like to document moments, for those street photographers, travel photographers, portrait photographer, for now I think our job's safe. not I mean, I'm gonna bring up a little bit more about that as well, but for now, for the people who do what I just said, probably still quite safe, because we are literally recording a moment people remember, like a wedding, like an event, like a birthday party. These things actually happen. People want to remember how it happened, not about being generated out of nowhere. And so this is something that we're still okay with. But commercially, yeah, definitely we're going to see big shift in demand for digital artists and stock photographers, for instance. And like you said already, Rod, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's going to be really, really difficult for them to survive if they relying on these sort of area to make their money, for instance, because they simply will run out of jobs soon. Because if all these advances further, producing high and high resolutions and more detail or more realistic, which they will, and that means that, like you said, you don't need to buy licensed photographs anymore. You don't need to buy generic. You don't need to hire product photographers. You simply just import something to base on, and the AI will generate around it.
Yes, I think yes and no. I think that Firefly will kill most stock photography, because let's imagine I was running a site on dog training or whatever.
Yep.
All I had to do was type half a sentence into Adobe's Firefly 3 text prompt, and I got an image I could use straight away. I didn't have to search for anything. I didn't have to credit any photographers. I
Yep.
didn't have to wonder whether I'd used up my free royalty free quota. And also, unless somebody typed in exactly the same prompt and chose exactly the same image, I've got an image no one else will have. So
No.
why would I go to a stock library? The difference is, though, that if you want a stock image of the thing that happened, or a definite person, then you still need stock photography. You still
Yeah.
need people like Getty or Alamy. who will
Yeah,
have this stuff. So it's not all stock photography, but a certain type of generic stock image
yeah.
selling a concept or an idea. I think that's had it. And heaven knows it's hard enough to make any money on Adobe stock anyway as a photographer, because the amount you get paid every time somebody uses an image on Adobe stock,
Yeah.
it's depressing. I'd be embarrassed to tell you. It's
Ab-
almost
ab-
nothing.
Absolutely. And but one thing I want to bring to your attention as well, or anybody who may be working in the portrait categories, is that I I slowly realize a lot of my clients in this year specifically is they starting to have some really interesting requests. And because of what we just talked about AI regenerative removals and with face swapping and things like that, and they now when they book me, they will ask me a question: Can I do face swapping? Can I do, remove people from the background? They starting to ask questions like this, and I believe a lot of them is due to the fact that they now seeing smartphone can do that. And it's been advertising left, right, and center for a couple of years now, and now Apple this year, the Apple Intelligence, they're also boasting about this particular feature as well for photographers. So they're now thinking that okay, that means you can do it in smartphone, you can do it professionally as well, right? That would be their questions. I often say to them is that no, and that is really not how it works, because while I can do that, but a lot of the cases it just won't work perfectly. I can do face swapping, I can do removal, but what people don't understand is AI regenerative is more about how the computer guess what it's supposed to look like by removing it, and then because the computer doesn't know what's behind the person. When you remove that person, it would have to guess something out. It's just a little bit like what you used to do with cloning. You use surrounding area to clone it out. And that's as simple as that. So you're not exactly removing the person and magically restore what's behind it. You simply don't know what's behind it, and that's full stop. And that's the trouble of that people never understood, or the companies from Google, Samsung, Apple never really advertise that side of it. They simply say, "Oh, look, they magically disappear," and but that's the trouble. People now think that this removal thing is magic. It really is magic. They will restore everything. They will get rid of all these unwanted people in your picture with a single swipe or click or whatever. And face swapping is exactly the same. If someone blinks, someone didn't smile, oh, I can just pick another image and swap it over. Quite easy, right? Not really. If they move the shoulder slightly
It's
differently, if you do this and that
yeah.
slightly differently, it would look really, really odd, to be honest.
The lighting's not quite the same. You have to get the scale. If the angle is shifted slightly, you can do an awful lot of work to get a result that can look convincing if you don't
Yeah.
look too closely, but
And
it's almost impossible to do it perfectly.
no, and even with the AI thing that they're doing in the phone now, and do it in a much smaller scale, and if you really blow it up to pixel level, and that when you're starting to see the joints and
Yeah,
see a lot of the kind of weird artifacts going when they're trying to blend the images together, so you need to be very careful what you're asking, because in the professional world, we simply don't operate like that, because we know that it doesn't look real. We do that, and then if you it just don't come out as nice as you want it to be. It's fine if you want to look on a phone screen, like there's just a small canvas, and I don't think you're going to notice that much. But if you want to print a 10 by 14, you want to print like a big print, or print a canvas or something like that, or print an album, you don't want to do that. You still want to properly photograph image, so you know exactly that's the moment you got from when I took it. So that's the very critical thing. That's how I explain to my clients anyway, because they are getting more common now to ask me that sort of questions. And I don't want to shoot so early in the morning. Can you just remove the people in the background altogether? Is it like?
Well, and this is thing as well. You might do that, and then the
Yeah.
next week they come back and say, that thing you did where you took out Aunt Mabel in the background, and Uncle Derek. They want to print. Can you put them back in? Weddings aren't just for the bride and groom, sadly. But
Yeah.
what you said about AI and smartphones is perfectly true. These effects are very convincing if you don't get too close. So I'm finding that with the product I'm reviewing at the moment, if you keep the image filling the screen
Yep.
and you do a generative remove or
Yep.
you do a generative extend to
Yep.
make the photograph bigger and add detail around the edges, or there's another one, generative uh, or AI power line removal and dust removal.
Yep.
Everything works until you take a close look.
Yep.
And when you take a close look, you think, oh, that's bad. If I'd cloned this and I'd got that, I would think I've done a terrible job. So they it can work, but very often it doesn't. And I think a lot of the time you may still be better off using old-fashioned cloning, or what I've done in the past, you do a bit of copy and paste. You you've got somebody standing in the background, you don't want them there, just copy an area adjacent and
Yep.
just drag it over and just blend it in to cover them up. You could use AI to try and guess what was there. The AI might guess that it needs to use a bit of brick wall next to the person, or it might decide that it needs to use a bit of a van that's parked alongside, or something else in the scene that's not appropriate. This is why Adobe gives you three alternatives to choose from, because most of the time it's just guessing and you'll have to pick the best
Yeah.
one. But anyway, that's the issue I was finding, that if you've got a small image or you're looking at a small device, it's fine. But I also find there are a lot of the generative AI tools, they don't match the resolution of your image. So that the patch you get put in, even if the tones and the colors and the details appear to match from a distance, when you look closely, the detail isn't there, or they're a little bit smudged, or you can see a join. I just don't find them quite good enough for
Yeah.
exacting work. And if you
No.
do this for a living, you do have to be exacting.
Yep.
It's all right, it's a bit of fun, but
Of course.
but I
Yeah.
don't think it works well enough at the moment
No,
to be
but then
a
again,
real
like
composition.
but then again, AI is improving. AI does get more convincing over time, and they're getting a lot better compared to even a couple of years ago. And it's all about the learning models, and they are learning at a quite a speed at the moment as well. So it's quite hard to
But
imagine what it's going to be like in about 4 to 5 years from now.
but Adobe also has to be very aware of commercial safety. And what they mean by that is that neither you nor they will get sued by somebody who thinks you've used an image of their product or their trademark. So
Yeah.
if you want to, in Photoshop, for example, put in a picture of why would you? But a van. Let's say
Yeah.
you want a picture of what should we say? What those Ford pickups? Can't think. Can't think.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
wanted to picture one of those in your image, say you're doing an advertising campaign for Ford, Adobe won't do that because it's a trademarked product.
Yeah. Sure.
So you would have to actually, God forbid, take that photograph with the truck there. So
Yeah.
the generative AI, I think increasingly, certainly when you use Adobe's version, you are not going to be able to name specific
No.
identifiable products.
Or brands.
It'll only
You
give
simply
you
got no brands.
generic, no brands, no brands.
Yeah.
Only a generic representation of that type of object.
Yeah.
So that image of the dog, that's never going to be a problem. There's never going to be a dog that looked exactly like that filing a lawsuit against Adobe.
Yeah.
But
For
if
instance,
I'd
yeah.
asked for a picture of a person and that person said, that's a picture of me, and it's close enough that most people would say it was, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, of course. Well, we got an interesting comment there from John as well. John from Discovery Photography. I'm a retired magazine editorial director. I can promise you magazine editors are not going to replace the illustrators. That's nonsense.
Well, I'm sorry to report that all the magazines I work on today and in the past few years have done exactly that, I'm afraid to say. But maybe John's worked for rather more prestigious magazines than mine. The print industry is in financial trouble, and the only way they keep print titles going is by cutting costs to the bone. And I'm very much afraid that illustrators were the first things to go on the titles I was involved in. If you've got a circulation in hundreds of thousands, that's one thing. If you're an enthusiast magazine that sells maybe 10 or 20,000 copies a month, you're not going to pay for an illustrator. Because a good illustrator is going to cost you, I don't know, what should we say, £500, $500 for a lead image, something like that. People won't pay that now, sadly. Now, if you're talking about good publishers of high circulation magazines, or maybe book publishers, that's a different thing. So money's probably going to be there. But no, I think these days most magazines, as soon as the art editors find out they can just put a prompt into Firefly 3 and save the 50 quid a month they're allowed to spend, then they'll do that and spend that 50 quid on other things. Yeah. It really is that tight in the consumer press.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in the commercial world now, yeah, and unless you, even in the camera world, let alone magazine, if you look at like general camera markets, camera maker markets, you know, not everybody's like Leica when they have a huge profit margins there to play with, and the majority of the camera makers are, like you said, to the bones. You know, like they need to find ways to make money, and that's why they keep overselling, overhyping certain technologies that they have for cameras, and so they can buy the next updates instead of using your current one, because your current one is simply not good enough. They want to make you to believe that. But if you're experienced photographer, for instance, of course, you know, you understand the basics of photography. Things are, you know, not going to change that much if I move on to the newer model. You know, if you know how to operate a camera, you know, you're going to get the exact same image most of the time anyway. You wouldn't fall for that unless you are having some sort of gas, which a lot of us do, and then that's when you get into trouble. But aside from that, if you are not about gas, you know, you're just simply about, you know, caring about images, image taking, image making, and I mean, I don't think you will fall for that sort of marketing. For instance, people who upgrade are generally, to me anyway, people who need to update is where either their camera is really old or basically just about the end of life, when you use it so much after 3 to 4, 5 years, and you just need to upgrade, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But for majority of us now, I mean, I could say the same about car industry as well. How many of us actually drive a car to 100,000 miles before you upgrade? People nowadays have a PCP, you know, they lease the car 3 to 4 years, they change to a new car, and majority of these cars are only having like 15, 20,000 miles on the clock. Same thing for cameras. You know, a lot of these cameras only have about 5,000, 6,000 actuations. They're not even breaking in. They're still relatively new.
No,
And so when you upgrade, all these like virtually new cameras will be back on the used market, selling for less than half the price.
It's a ridiculous situation, really. I've got cameras as old as my car. My car's 12 years old, but it still does what a car is supposed to do. So I guess that's how one can look at cameras. I just wanted to answer a remark from Andrew about publishers using images that they shouldn't.
Let me just bring that up here. Yep.
That, in my experience, is not deliberate. It's just error. Because what happens is that, especially online, magazine publishers will have to quickly introduce systems, often developed by third parties, for archiving and storing images in a CMS. These do not always have properly developed rights attributions in them.
Yeah.
So if you get a staff writer or a contributor puts an image in an article, uploads it, they don't know how to properly assign it to its actual creator. It ends up being kind of put in a big pool of images that somebody else will come along and say, "Oh, that'll do. I'll use that." So it's another indication of how things have been cut to the bone. IPR is an extremely important thing to get right, but if you buy a cheap system and you don't use experienced staff to operate it, it's going to go wrong. It's sad but true. It's just an indication of the state that the publishing has got into, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It's better to have magazines run badly than no magazines,
So we
perhaps.
we we are
Uh,
in an interesting time now, isn't it, Rod? And with all
yeah,
this traditional medium that we so fond with, like magazines, prints, albums, these things are becoming obsolete, and then
but
most people don't print anymore. I mean, I'm more specific talk about UK especially, and I know the US, many still print their photographs and still have albums and canvases and stuff like that hanging on the wall. I mean, I got plenty of my American clients do just that, but in the UK, all my clients in the UK are just asked for digital files. They don't print them. They just simply store them somewhere and view them on the phone and the iPad. And
do
not
you
once they asked me to print anything.
do you ever pitch the idea of wall art and big prints, or do
I
you
love it.
just wait to see what they ask for? But do you ever try and convince them that's what they
Yeah.
actually want?
Oh yeah, yeah. I do. Yes. And I even show them
But
sample
they
because
don't go for it.
I have samples as well. So like every time we do face to face meeting, I show them the sample of like
Yeah,
printed medium, like how much it's nicer to actually have a physical elements that to touch, to feel, to flip through it, and they all agree. Oh, it's nice. It's nice. But then
yeah,
at the end of the day, it comes down to cost as well, because printing is not cheap, especially printing professionally is not cheap.
yeah.
In the UK, you print an album, a nice album. I'm talking about not the high street albums that you get, not the table book thing you get from
Not
these
Snapfish
on
or yeah,
not something like that, but a properly professional album costs you £300-400 minimum.
yeah,
So like these are not cheap costs. And a nice
no,
canvas would easily set you back £150-180 for a canvas.
yeah,
A
yeah.
professional properly done up
Probably
pieces like that,
painted.
yeah, cost you a lot of money. And
Yeah,
I guess it is what it is, and this is the way that it's going now. So people are now more into digital viewing experiences, backlit panel instead of actual reflective panel that we used to so used to like looking at, like all the prints, all the magazines and things like that. I don't know. I personally still prefer photo books. I still prefer having an album. I still prefer looking at prints hanging on the wall. I still print my photographs. Then that I just like it that way. I don't like having what do you call this digital album thing. That you see. And basically, it's a screen, and that is it's a play slideshow
yes.
in
I know
loops,
what you mean.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's not.
E-frame,
It's
E-frame.
E-frame. It's not. It's really not the same thing at all. It's not. It's a virtual object rather than a physical one.
Yeah,
And I think we are very tied to physical things
yeah.
in how we feel about
May,
them. If a thing doesn't
maybe,
really
maybe,
exist,
maybe I'm just too old, and maybe all the younger generations now don't even give a monkey about prints anymore. I mean, they're so used to just seeing
well, there
everything on
is
the
that.
phone. Yeah. So,
There is that. But then you see people's faces when an elderly relative or they discover a big box of prints in a wardrobe, and you can pick them up and you can feel the texture of the surface, and you can look at them. This one for as long as you like and put it down. That one not interested straight away. It's a much more physical interactive thing to look at a box of prints than it is to swipe things on the screen.
as especially like my kids as well, like they're now very used to digital screens. They're not really
Yeah,
kind of interested in any sort of printed mediums. I
excuse me.
use Instax photos a lot as well at home, when it's just take some snapshots of my kids and they just stick it to the fridge. They like that. They
Yeah,
like that, but anything else they just find it, yeah. So what is no difference to the screen. I'd rather have the screen because I can have thousands and thousands of photos on this little device instead of having to flip through so many pages of photographs, and I can find them easily because you can do search prompt on all the phones now, right? So
well, yeah, you can. I quite like Apple's. It's not AI as such in Apple Photos, but I quite like the idea that your photo organizing tool will surface memories that you may
yeah,
have forgotten. I think that's quite a nice idea. But so will a box of prints or an album. That's a kind of different thing having a physical print, isn't it? It's. I don't know whether we can blame AI for that or whether we can just blame the rise of kind of laziness and this kind of preoccupation with digital imagery.
Yep.
But I think if AI is going to be useful, I can. One example is if AI can go through your Lightroom catalog and just come up with 200 images that it knows you will like based on what you've looked at before. That'd be
Right.
quite useful because if I want to write an article or illustrate a technique, I'll often think, can I really face going through my Lightroom catalog again? I know the stuff in there, but you just
Yeah.
got to drill down to it. Be nice to have a bit of AI that could say you like this, and it's right. That'd be good. But also this thing Andrew and I were talking about, like the rights assignment. Why can't content management systems have AI content or image management systems that can say, you can't use this. This is Andrew Banner's. Doesn't belong to you. That's a proper use of
Yeah.
AI. But we
Yes.
don't get that, do we?
No, not yet anyway.
No, no. But I see that to me is a very effective use of AI.
Yep.
Doing something you would have otherwise have had to do yourself and taking
Yep.
that work away from you.
Yep.
I can accept that's fine. It's fine.
So back
We
to
don't
the
get that very much.
the title that we in the thumbnail
Yes.
today anyway is photography dead? Or is it going to die because of AI, because of artificial intelligence, and because of how young generations is being exposed to AI and how they accepted the technologies now as part of their lives will change the course of photography or change how people see photography as how we know it for more than 100 years.
I think somebody commented earlier, I wish I could remember who my chat's gone. Every time I reconnect, I lose my chat history. That before long, reality may be back in demand. Vinyls come back. People have film cameras. Maybe one
Yeah,
day they'll feel the
yeah.
same way about reality. Oh, do you remember when things were real? Oh, yeah. Oh, there's going to be a revival of reality.
Oh,
Maybe
remember the
that will
day you
happen.
remember you never had an avatar before.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, they've got a face. I thought they were just the avatar. That's what I'm used to. I don't like the face. But I think that will happen. But I think we're just in a period of confusion now where people haven't quite got straight whether they're in love with a thing that exists and happened, or whether they're in love with an idea or the products of their imagination. I think half the market now thinks, oh,
Mm,
I can type in a few prompts and I can create wonderful imagery that will get me a lot of likes on Instagram and maybe get me a job as an illustrator or a commercial artist. That's not quite the same as somebody saying, I saw this, this is important, I need to
yeah,
get a record of this.
yeah.
I think in the past photography has done both things, but I think now there's like a fork in the road. That's not like a fork, is it? I don't know how to indicate a fork with my hand
Yeah.
without it looking rude.
It's
But there's a point of divergence, I think.
It is. It certainly is. And but I don't know how many of you feel the same way as I do. Like I'm slightly sidetracking now, but it's in the same line of things. Is that how many of you like used to like going to a record store? Like look through vinyls or CDs. On the shelf, look at different CD labels and the covers, and it's fascinating. Look at all the artworks on each of the CD
Yeah,
albums and covers and things like that. It's
yeah,
nice to look at them, touch them, like flip through them, physically touching them, swap them around, doing things with them. And now you go on Spotify, you go on Apple Music, you just type the song that you want to watch or listen to, and there's no more touching, no more interactions there. It feels like there's
no,
something missing. Like I really enjoy the experience every time I go to a record store. I like to look pick out all the CDs, from different singers, and look at different because most of the time they group them into singers, right? You look at through a
yeah,
singer's name, and
yeah,
then you pick through the different albums and look at the changes for them over the years. Just curious sometimes, and then but all that fun is gone with digitizations. All the time you go to Spotify. You type in the artist's name. All they do just list out the songs that they have. They may have the digital artwork next to it, but it's different.
Yeah,
It's different to
thumbnail
how
size.
you pick out the CD or the vinyl. How, just to look through the artwork, or sometimes a lot of them they have a leaflet inside, has some photos of the album, the production, behind the scenes stuff. You lose all that now.
Yeah, and you haven't got the patina. You haven't got the history that's become part of the object. You haven't got the kind of frayed edges on the sleeve.
No.
And the other thing you haven't got is that if you went through the transition from vinyl to CD, like
Yeah.
I did, I guess most of us did, with the album, you had all the pops and the whistles and the little scratches and the background crackliness,
Yeah.
and often the last track nearest the middle
Yeah.
isn't quite the same quality as the outer tracks,
Yeah.
because you've got the data's compressed more. But when you get the digital version, it's completely spotlessly clean from an audio sense, but it's kind of lost a lot of its presence. Now, I think at the time a lot of people thought that it was because it had been digitized. I don't think that's it. I think it's more that it's lost the textural background that we used to. It's like now we haven't got grain anymore. We really miss it, because that was part of the
it looks wrong, right?
Photograph.
And it looks wrong when the images is so clean. It just looks wrong.
Has to be done right. For the record,
Yep.
Lightroom and Capture One do it extremely well.
Yep.
Because they use the grain to kind of erode the detail in the image. They do it very well indeed. Other programs that you would think would specialize in these analog effects, no names, they don't do it as well. They tend to kind of put the grain on top. So you've got an image which is far too sharp with grain on top. That's not how grain looks. But anyway.
Yeah.
Sidetracked.
I know what you mean. But Enrique actually said that he still goes to antique store and buy vintage vinyl albums. Yeah, that's good.
Well,
at least we're not the only one.
I think that you get a different sense of the time when you do that. I can't really explain it. The aging of physical products is part of their fascination. Perhaps that's
And it's also almost like a time stamp, right? Like if the item is 10 years old, it looks like a 10 years old. It feels like a 10-year-old. It doesn't. It's not new, right? It just, no matter how well you keep it, it's just not new.
Does anyone here use the online listing and organizing tool Trello? Trello.
No.
That you basically have a bunch of columns, and you put like little cards on the column for things you want to remember. Every card is a specific bit of information, like a task or project or whatever. I don't know if it still has it, but Trello had an aging option, so that
Really?
the longer how can I put it? The further ago the card was created, the more aged it appears on your display. So it's like a digital aging to give you a sense that the card had been there for a while, which is unusual, quite clever. But yeah, I think it's the physical aging of a physical object is part of its appeal.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's really interesting to think that way, and I hope we will retain some of that well into the future. I know that things are definitely changing. It's not as how we used to. We have to accept that things are moving on. Technologies are here. We have to embrace it. It's not going to move backward. That's for sure. So we just have to be sure, though, for those who remember, will treasure it, and also trying to maintain and keep it while embracing some of the newer stuff. For newer photographer, I think, and unfortunate, unless they're really die hard and also wanted to really embrace the old way of making things, they will simply grow with current technologies and move forward. This is something that we can't avoid. It's like, people who are born in the next 5 years will not know how to drive a manual car, full stop, because they will be all electric by the time they grow up and know how to drive a car, or maybe then it will be all self-driving. So like, it's something that it just can't be stopped, you know, and that's how things are moving forward. And if photography some days becoming very different to how we remember, and so be it. But at the same time, I'm still around, so I'm still going to be trying to do things the old traditional way if I can, and while embracing some of the technologies for some of the commercial stuff that I do, to blend it in together. So it's not that I'm trying to distance myself from AI and all the other stuff. We have to accept it, you know, and but we have to be very careful and draw the line when to use it, when not to use it.
I'm just worried that people are using AI instead of the real thing. They're using artificial intelligence instead of actual intelligence.
Yep.
As just because it seems easier, but at the same, that means they're losing any understanding of how this thing actually works.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I think if you're a photographer, you will understand that your camera can't see behind things. So your example earlier, Jimmy, that the camera can't know that with that person out of the way, what would have been behind them. Has to guess. But I think a lot of people might not properly appreciate that fact. They might think AI is wonderful. It can do anything. Take that person away. Of course the camera knows what's behind them. It can't. It's not optically possible.
No. And but however, you know, like having said that, you know, I do know certain techs are developing, especially in the video world, when they do AI enhancement, for instance, or AI restoration for certain video clips, or upscaling. What they tend to do is now, because motion picture is very different to photography, of course, because motion pictures are capturing a certain number of frames per second, and so they use different frames to analyze different data at different positions. So they will have a better sense of what's behind or in front of the subject in question, and trying to manipulate it. So it may work in videos, but for photos, let's say if you only got 2 frames, the AI simply won't know what's behind, what's in front. They will just have to guess or manipulate it to make it look convincing to you. But most of the time, I can say that to you now. A lot of the AI stuff that I've been trying out in the last year or so, most of them look, you know, pretty fake to me, and because I know what exactly behind that thing, you know, most of the time, and it's just simply not there. Yeah.
You know what you're looking for and where to look, and it immediately jumps out at you. But your point about video is an extremely good one. That is a very good point. So in video, it may be possible to replace people with what was behind them for that very reason, because video operates in an extra dimension.
Yep, and absolutely, it's 2D at least. You know, it's left and right, and then
if you count time as well, you've got 3 dimensions.
Well, that's true, and but that's exactly what Topaz is doing, and so that's quite interesting for what they do, and so we'll be interesting to see what sort of thing can be generated in the next 5 years or so. Andrew say, "Where's my new play button?" Well, my play button is in my kids' room. So they took it away from me. They think it's theirs. YouTube gave me a play button, so. Yeah, and to celebrate my 75,000 subscribers, so that's
well done.
Very
well
cool. Thank you. So that's good.
That's 74,999 more than I've got. So well done. But I did notice in Adobe Max 2024 2 things with video. One is that Premiere Pro can now use AI to extend a clip you finished too early.
Oh.
Or which I think is quite good, because it happens a lot, right? You film something and you don't allow enough dead time at the end of the clip for any editing or transitions. So it can do that. I imagine it does that pretty well. The other thing that's coming though is text to video prompt.
Right.
So soon you won't have to shoot any video anymore, Jimmy. Perhaps you can just upload a picture of yourself and type in what you're going to explain.
Another person out of job soon. Well, the joy of AI.
We'll only ever need 1 photograph of you, Jimmy, just to create endless YouTube videos where you're telling us stuff.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. It really is. It's scary. Actually, I saw a clip this morning. Actually, one YouTube channel they specifically talking about AI, and they do a lot of demo of how you can replace people's faces in real time. And the video that watches a demo, basically, they select a face that's already been scanned into the system, and replace the face of the guy who's presenting it in real time. And it's scary how real it looks. Even the manipulating the
Yeah.
skin, even when you pull the faces, it does that as well. And there's
The
no artifacts. Well, at least I can't notice anything anyway. I'm pretty sure if you do frame by frame slow down, you probably see it. But like from what I watch, it's pretty convincing.
the thing I've noticed over the years about presentations of features is that the experience of the presenter is often very different to the one I have later. They choose an image which responds perfectly to
Yep.
that particular treatment. And whenever I've done a tutorial, I know I've had to go through about 50 before that didn't work
Yep.
to find the one that worked perfectly. So when you do the
Ah.
video or the walkthrough, it looks like a thing that just works perfectly on everything. No.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think possibly the same with video AI. What we see is when it works. What we don't see
Yep.
is when it doesn't.
Right. So I guess that will conclude our chat today about AI, and I hope you guys have some understanding, maybe appreciation what we just said, and I would like to hear from your opinion as well about what you think about
Yeah.
AI in both photography, and if some of you do shoot videos, and let us know about your view about AI in video as well, because at the moment they are not as or not as extensive as in photography, simply because I think we are limited by processing power, and obviously analyzing one frame, like i.e. An image or a photograph, is a lot easier than analyzing a video clip, which has thousands and thousands and thousands of frames, right? And so it's going to be really interesting to see how you think about it. I would like to hear your thoughts about how you embrace it, whether you think it's a good thing or whether you think it's a bad thing, or how you think about the future generations of photographers and content creators and filmmakers, and how these sort of technologies will help them in the future about the productions, and how about us, the old timers, being left out in the dust.
Yeah, and I think just to address a comment here from John Young, the use of AI in political and campaigning is deeply worrying. I agree with that.
Mm,
Um, but I think my parting shot, I like to be philosophical, would be if in the future we live entirely within our own imagination, we'll never discover anything new
no.
because your imagination is not a vast unexplored universe. It's quite a small container,
Yeah.
and it's only got the things in it you already know. If you're closed to discovering things that are new or accepting what is out there and real rather than what is in your head as being ideal, you're never going to discover anything.
No.
The human imagination is not as big as people think it is.
That is true. That is true. And so I guess only time can tell exactly what will happen. And but in the meantime, I think we should all enjoy a little bit of traditional photography. Go out and play around with your camera, manual focusing them.
Discover and enjoy what's there,
Yeah.
and just for a while, stop trying to make things what you want them to be. Accept things as they are and
Yeah.
enjoy them as they are.
And learn to find the lights that you like for photography, and because
The light,
light
it's
the light
everything.
the light is everywhere. Good light,
Everything.
bad light, and like we talked about earlier, like whether it's not a sunny day, but there is still light, and you just how you interpret it, how you think the light is for what type of photography or what type of photograph you want to create. There's always something to photograph. Bright daylight, rainy days, even in the dark, there's always some light, right? So you just have to look for them.
Yeah.
When you do look for them, when you do find them, I'm pretty sure you can create something out of it. So that's always something to photograph.
Some of my best photographs have been taken on some of the world's cameras.
Oh,
It's
really?
just where. Well, yeah. I've been testing cameras for years. You
Yeah.
you know you go out taking test shots. It's always about no. It's always about the light, knowing where to stand, and knowing when to shoot.
Yeah.
And Sometimes I had the right camera, sometimes I had the wrong camera. But the best photographs were rarely from the best cameras. It's just what you
Yeah.
have.
Interesting, interesting. Well, we got Andrew and John talk about the different politics.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's the same everywhere. It's
Yeah.
it's yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And yeah.
I
Right.
I'm gonna have to drop out, Jimmy. I've just got to take a phone call. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, sure, no problem. Well, we might as well wrap up from here now. So,
Okay.
thank you very much for watching, guys, and or listening. So it's been good fun talk about AI. I know it's a little bit provocative and also a little bit of a debate there. And hope you guys think about it and also enjoy what we talked about and have your thoughts and give us some comment as well. So we'd like to hear from you. So maybe next time we're going to talk about something slightly less demanding or so we can talk a little bit about something more
Yeah,
fun, maybe gear talk, maybe something like that.
something a bit more energizing and
Something
uplifting.
more more energizing. Yes. Okay, guys. Thanks you very much. Remember, leave some comments down below and to subscribe this
Yeah.
podcast. And if you have time, and otherwise, I will see you all not next Wednesday, the following Wednesday, because I'll be away next week. So I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. So thanks, Rod, again, and until next time, we will see you all very very soon. So bye for now.